Spark.N.Stride. Spark.N.Stride. Spark.N.Stride.
What is going on, people? Listen, Spark.N.Stride Season 2, a very important person to me, friend, colleague, and just an overall good salt of the earth person. So that's what I want to say about you, L, up front.
Nah, I appreciate you, bro.
Just your energy, you. It's always been, nothing but love, right? So you and I both served in the Air Force.
Yep.
We were, you're still in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And we shared this subculture of the Air Force, which is Air Force recruiting.
Yeah.
Right. So, and we're going to get into, I do want to talk about recruiting for a little bit, but I want to have the opportunity to catch up with you.
Of course.
Because I haven't seen you in roughly 10 years.
Word.
I've been following everything, right? But it's going on 10 years that I haven't physically seen you. But what's going on, my brother? How you feeling?
Man, I'm blessed. I'm happy to be here. This is beautiful. Amazing. This is amazing. I'm blessed. I'm beyond happy to be here with you. Like you said, we haven't physically been in front of each other for 10 years, but we've definitely been following each other's journeys along throughout your career, starting this up, everything, man. So I'm good. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So listen, man. So thank you for being here, and thank you for taking out time. I know you have to schedule this, right? Like, and that's a whole nother thing with like podcasts and this kind of thing. Like, it's not easy, man. And also, you start reaching out to your network and your folks, and folks tell you like, hey, man, like, we're scheduled, we're going to do it, but things come up, things happen. So I'm extremely grateful that you took time to put it into your calendar and like, we're able to like pull it off. But, so I do want to catch up, right? I want you to know a little bit of background. So when I put this together, when I instinctively thought about Spark.N.Stride, mental health, wellness, resiliency, personal development, these pillars of conversation, I wrote a list of the folks that I would want to speak to on this platform, right? I'm going to show you the note that I have these notes in my closet. You're on there.
Wow.
Right? That for me, like, I was like, man, like, I want to talk to Elle about, and for folks listening or watching, like, what the hell are they talking about? You're just going to have to, like, if you really want to know, you guys got to like listen. Absolutely. Because, I think that I know for a fact that you'll leave here with some sense of gratitude in your own life. Is what I'm hoping you can take away from this. But listen, I don't want to get into too much of but let me tell you this though. Yeah. So I put your name down, and last year was like a baby year for me. Try to figure out, can I do this? Can I pull this off? How do I do this? How do I market? And ultimately, the technical part of it, like, how do you do it? How do you record? What kind of cameras do you need, and lenses and lights? Because there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know. So with that being said, I wanted to reach out to you because I genuinely care. Yeah. And I want to, and thankfully you're up for doing this. You know what I mean? But I just want to like catch up and figure out how did you get this cancer diagnosis?
So it was super strange. So like I said, I was diagnosed, for those that don't know, I was diagnosed September 25th, 2019. I was taking my son goes back and forth between Boston and New York. So he came down to New York for the summer, and I was driving him back to school. I was like just normal fatigue. I think it was around a PT test time. So I was normally tired. I had lost weight, but I was working out. I was dieting. I was prepping my body to kind of remain in shape. So a lot of the symptoms that most people would probably see if they weren't as active, they would, they probably would overlook it. For me, it was just like, it was normal. I was like, I'm everything's paying off. All the hard work that I'm doing is paying off. I'm losing weight. I'm tired because I'm working out so hard. But one of them that stood out was I had a huge lump that was here on the left side of my collarbone. It was like a grapefruit. It would come up and come down. But I also attributed it to working out. I thought it was like a muscle spasm. And, you try to stay away from Google. When you jump on Google, man, and you see stuff, everything is the worst. It's like, oh, you're dying next week. And it's like, so they doctors tell you to stay off of Google. So
Bro, but a grapefruit is huge.
It was, but it would go up and it would go down. So I was like, maybe I pulled it from squatting or deadlifting or something, and maybe it was just a muscle spasm. But because I would put the heating, I had like a heating contraption that I would hang over, I would ice it, and it would basically inflame and it would go down. But as we would figure out later on, it ended up being, it's a lymph node. So we have lymph nodes all through our bodies, but it was the lymph node was enlarged. A symptom of this cancer that I didn't get, that I found out after, is blood in the urine, because it's a kidney cancer. So it's renal medullary carcinoma, also known as RMC. And typically that's how you know when your kidneys are damaged. That's kind of what happened. Like people pass kidney stones and things like that. So when I'm looking up a lot of stuff, that was one of the symptoms I didn't have, and that was one of the main symptoms. So my thought process is maybe like they caught it very early. But anyway, so what happened was, getting all over the place. So my son was here for the summer, took him up first week of September to start school in Boston. And then while I was there, my ex-wife is like, why are you so tired? And I'm like, I didn't know, because usually I go there and I play basketball with my son. We're out, we're bowling, we're doing a bunch of different stuff. And I would get there and I'm just, really, really tired, really fatigued. And then I hit the road back. She's like, all right, we'll drive safe. And the whole ride back, I had a really bad pain where my kidney is on my left side. It was really painful, excruciating pain, and like where my kidney was. We'll get to that. It's gone now. But so we get back. That night I couldn't sleep, toss and turn. And if you've ever been in some type of pain to where you can't sleep through it, you'll know. So that next morning, I think it was like a Monday, or it might have been a Sunday, because I think I went back on Saturday when I took him and came back so he can get ready for school. So Sunday night he was getting ready. That Sunday, I woke up and was like, nah, this isn't normal. So took myself to the hospital, Long Island Jewish Hospital. They ran a bunch of tests. Next thing I know, I'm admitted in the hospital. I'm there for about 14 days. They're running all types of tests.
Whoa.
Yeah, the first thing they did an x-ray. They usually do an x-ray, and that kind of lit up, and they were like, all right, they're looking at stuff. And then the first thing they say is, well, it could be lymphoma, because it lit up, all my lymph nodes basically lit up like a Christmas tree. So from there, they're like, all right, but they still don't know. So they're running tests, blood tests. I end up having a biopsy, because I told them about this. At that point, it wasn't like the grapefruit like it was. It had went down a little bit, but they still felt it was inflamed compared to the right side. So they ended up doing a biopsy on that. And then from there, they knew it was some type of cancer. So at that time, we're going with it's lymphoma possibly. I'm looking up lymphoma. I'm like, all right, lymphoma is like 96% cure rate. So it's like, all right, they can treat it. It's good. But still, every day is like, well, the doctor's not here, or the doctor has it, but they're still waiting on this. They're waiting on that. During this time, you're being a shirt. I will commend my leadership team. Like, they were absolutely amazing. My commander at the time, my SEL, the shirt. Like, once they knew I was in the hospital, they were already, I guess, coming to New York, and they ended up coming to visit me. Wanted to make sure it was okay. But that was like a really, really scary time, man. Just thinking back, like I said, literally 14 days in the hospital. Had friends, family visiting me. That's the cool thing with recruiting, the recruiting family. And then also I'm from New York City. So my family's there. They're checking on me, coming to hang out with me until visiting hours are over. But if you know anything about being in the hospital, the beds ain't comfortable. It's not your own bed. And then you also have the uncertainty of, what's going on, and kind of that's that worry, that anxiety, especially when you know it's already bad. So it's just trying to figure out how bad it was. At the end of the 14 days, they did everything they had to do to biopsy, a bunch of labs. I was doing blood work almost every day. They were coming in and taking labs.
So they do a biopsy of the...
Yeah, they cut out this one because that was the swollen part. So they knew they could grab something of it. So they put me to sleep. It's like a little scar here, and they cut out a piece, and they basically send that to what's called the tumor board, where they check to see where it is, and they can kind of determine where it originated and going from there. Once they completed all the tests, the worst thing I did was a bone marrow biopsy. So you got to lay on your stomach, and they basically go into like your hip bone, and they got to take a piece, because at this point they know it's some type of cancer. So now it's like, how do we figure out where else it is in your body if it's spread? From there, they did that. Then they released me. They let me go home after the 14 days.
Hang on a second. So you go to the hospital. Now you're admitted. They're running all these tests. So while they're running all these tests, they're coming back and they're telling you, hey, listen, like, it's cancer. We believe it's this kind of cancer.
Yep.
Whoa, man. Like, bro, you're saying it like very freely. Yeah. But I'm thinking to myself, how do you process that? Like, bro, you were just in Boston driving.
Yep.
And now you're in the hospital and they're telling you that you have, they believe, you know, lymphoma?
Lymphoma was the first one.
Was the first thing?
Yeah, first thing. So my cancer, RMC, is extremely rare. It's an aggressive type of cancer. And I think where we're at now, we're 5 years, almost 5 years post my diagnosis. At that time, there wasn't really much information on it. There were a few other diagnoses, but I think this is what hurt a lot of people. They were misdiagnosed and they were probably treated incorrectly on certain things. And I'll get into that a little bit later as we continue to talk about it. Because when people are diagnosed, so what RMC is, it's an extremely rare cancer. It's most commonly found in African-American males with the sickle cell trait or sickle cell. So I do have the sickle cell trait. When I joined the Air Force, it wasn't a big deal. It was like, oh, you have the trait. And I grew up my whole life with the mindset of, if you have the trait, you're good. As long as you don't have a child with someone that has sickle cell trait, then your child will automatically inherit full-blown sickle cell. So I've played sports all my life, basketball, football, baseball, super active, never had any issues in the Air Force, good PT scores, maintain, you know, good health and fitness throughout all of this. So it was definitely a shock. And it's just something that where back then, I think the resources were really low. And now as we go, and obviously as I'm here now, definitely blessed and grateful, we've seen some big changes with the treatment and how things are handled and timelines when things are handled. I know in most cases, certain people get their kidney removed right away, but that's a whole nother thing too. So like we said, we thought it was lymphoma. I get discharged from the hospital. They call me back in because what happens is they have to have a tumor board where basically a bunch of oncologists, they kind of review it and they can try to determine the type of cancer, the stage, and possibly where it originated. So they called me in. So at this point, I hadn't been given an official diagnosis. The assumption was that it was lymphoma. I know I did all these tests. So I'm thinking, okay, that's what it's going to be. So doctor calls me. You get a call. They can't give you these news over the phone. We need to see you. Can you come in? I think it was like a Thursday at 1:00. I'll be there. I still have the video on my Instagram, I think, when I posted the announcement that I got the official diagnosis. Now at this point, I'm officially diagnosed. They diagnosed me with lung cancer. I'm like, I don't smoke. But I didn't know this. I've learned so much about cancer throughout this process. It's like most people that get lung cancer aren't smokers, or the people who do get lung cancer, they get it long after they've lived their life and it comes after. But a lot of it comes from secondhand smoke. So my thing is, I'm not around anybody who smokes. I don't smoke. How is it lung cancer? So at this point, Long Island Jewish, thank you for everything that they've done. Now I have some friends that have people that work in the city at Sloan Kettering, at NYU Langone. I get pulled down there. They're doing more tests because now that we know it's cancer, it's like, okay, I needed to do like an MRI, full PET scan, CT scans to see if it's anywhere else in my body. So I'm doing a full PET scan from head to toe for the whole body because that's how they determine how they're going to do treatment. If it's in the brain, because obviously if it's in the brain, they have to kind of start treatment right away, right there, because that's a vital organ. Definitely we can't do anything without that.
Wow.
So we go down there, we do that. And shout out to Carmen. She was down there. She's good friends with a friend of mine, Janice. That's her mom. And she just moved mountains to get me in and schedule for appointments. Like I was like literally the next day, she's like, get down here. You're scheduled for this. You're getting that. She told him I was her brother, you know, and
who is she? How is she?
So she's Janice's mom. Janice is a good friend of mine from high school, like from way back in the day. And once it got out, because I made that post after I got the diagnosis from LIJ, Long Island Jewish, and I put that, people are hitting me up. Like, yo, what do you need? I got somebody that works in this hospital.
Oh, wow.
That's why it's huge. Like you mentioned at the start of this, a network, knowing people. Because especially, honestly, when everything's going on, thinking back about it now, everything was a blur. I feel like I was a deer in the headlights. Once I got that diagnosis, I feel like everything went blank. And you know how in those movies sometimes when everything's fast and you're kind of just walking through, that's how I feel like.
The Matrix.
That's exactly what it felt like, the Matrix. I'm walking through slow and everything's just flying through me. And I'm just like trying to process it, trying to figure out what am I going to do? And you know, you get people who, don't do chemo, you know, modern medicine, do this, do that. And you're like, do you want to trust your life with that? Granted, like at that time, like I said, my cancer was very under-researched and there wasn't a lot of information other than it was rare and extremely aggressive. Wow. So I got with a doctor at NYU. He gave me the official diagnosis. You don't have lung cancer, but you do have stage. So I had a form of lung cancer because my lung, It was basically stage 4. So stage 4 means it metastasized, it spread. So I had cancer literally in my lymph nodes, my lungs, my kidney, my liver, my stomach, and my abdomen area. It was spread everywhere. Because it's so aggressive, they couldn't even tell me like, yeah, we caught it early. I'm guessing we caught it early because of how I was able to respond to treatment. But I think if it would have went longer, because most people who get diagnosed, unfortunately, a lot of people that I became friends with, they got diagnosed and then within a few months or less than a year, they had passed away. So you have that hanging over your head too as you're going through treatment and thinking everything else. So I went with Dr. Ballard, and then from that point, my son's mother, she works for a pretty known company that knew somebody who worked at Dana-Farber, which is my cancer center. And they were like, yeah, he can come here. And that was my thought process. So mind you, this is September 2019. What happened towards the end of 2019, 2020?
I was just about to ask you that.
COVID.
Yeah.
So
I was
for
just
me,
about to ask you that, yeah.
at that time, my son was about 12, about 11, 12 years old. Because, yeah, he just turned 16. So my thought process is, like I said, everything's still kind of, I'm trying to make decisions about what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. We got Sloan Kettering in New York. I had the good reputation where Carmen worked at NYU. So I'm like, all right, I know if I need anything, they're going to help because for one, she works for them and they're going to make sure that everything is good. But then I'm also like, we hadn't quarantined yet because it was very early with COVID. But nobody could have foreseen what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So my thing was, if I'm going to be here and do treatment, how am I still going to, travel? I don't know. At that time, I didn't know much about chemo and what it entailed. I was very, very minimally knowledge on cancer as a whole. I knew what cancer was. I knew it wasn't good. I knew people, struggle with a lot of stuff. So I was like, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy to travel even without COVID before it became a big deal. Mm-hmm. So my thing was like, she opened up her home. She was like, you can come out here and do treatment. And she helped me get to and from appointments. And then obviously once I was there, they closed state lines. A lot of these states, Massachusetts, New York, it was like you couldn't come and go. Same thing with Jersey. It was like if you were in Jersey, you had to jump through hoops or be an essential worker in order to be able to go back and forth between state lines. So that was a good thing. And it's as crazy as it is, it feels really good that I was able to get that opportunity to spend more time with my son. Cause we basically co-parent. Mm-hmm. So like I said, he was with me for the summer, he's there. And then I would go up for holidays or he would come down for a spring break or a weekend. So essentially I go there and I'm spending every day with him. But I think, as a dad too, like with kids, they're superheroes, you know what I'm saying? And that's how it was with my grandmother. So my thing, I was very self-conscious, like having him see me this way, you know what I'm saying? Very frail, very weak, very fatigued. It was a tough time. It was definitely a tough time. I mean, a lot of this I'll definitely have in my retirement speech, but just having them there for me to support me and everybody, in my life to be there and support me, was just amazing. I mean, we don't make it through a fraction of the stuff that we go through by ourselves. Mm-hmm. We might like to think we do, but having a support system and a foundation, how important that is. What else? So yeah, I got out there, started treatment literally a month later in October with Dr. Bradley McGregor. Funny enough, he was in the Air Force as well. He served 14 years active, and I think he's still finishing up about his 6th year in the reserves. But it wasn't through the military. He just works for Dana-Farber, and then he's in the reserves. He's still like a colonel. I believe he's a colonel. I don't want to say don't let me get his rank wrong or anything like that. But I think we bonded on that. And I got the official diagnosis, RMC. The prognosis with this at that time, I think it may have changed now, but at that time it was 12 to 18 months. So I'm sitting here. That was I wanted to ask you, like, I was going to ask you if at any point were they kind of like telling you, this is, bro, like, come on, man. I meet Dr. McGregor. Dude, I'm curled up. I'm in so much pain. They had to get me on pain meds. I was curled up on the examination table because I was in so much pain. And when they're telling you that, like, you look it up, and then they're like, yeah, the prognosis. Because, there's questions you ask, and there's questions you sometimes you don't want to ask the questions that you don't really want the answers to. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. So, like, you ask it, and they're like, yeah, for this right now, based off the numbers, it's 12 to 18 months. So we try to, make you as comfortable as possible and, treat you with what we can and manage the pain and hopefully allow you to do whatever. So that's why I say I'm blessed too, because to all the cancer patients that are out there, people that are dealing with it, and all the caregivers, I just tip my hat to all of them, because it's not easy. It's a physical, emotional, mental roller coaster. You have good days, you have bad days, but the fact that I was able to still do the things that I wanted to do, I think it benefited me too, because like I said, COVID happened, so we ended up teleworking. So it didn't negatively impact my career. I was still able to do my job, and I'm glad I was, because I felt like keeping that purpose is what kept me going. Like having something to get up and having something to do, like tasks to do. I ended up doubling up on all my classes so I could finish my bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm. I was like, because if you have things and you have a list of goals that you want to do, I mean, it may be cliche, do it. What are you waiting for? Like tomorrow is there, but why put off tomorrow what you can do today? And that's what this diagnosis and this treatment and this experience that I've gone through has taught me. So often in my life, I was like, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. I was taking classes just to get a bullet on my EPR. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm like, this was a goal of mine. I'm going to achieve this. And like I said, that gave me purpose, and it gave me a reason to get up. Otherwise, I just would have stayed in bed. People were giving me books or book recommendations, audio books, podcasts to listen to. But having something to get up and still be able to help people pursue their goals in recruiting. Mm-hmm. At that time, I was an HP recruiter. Mm-hmm. So I was able to still be involved. And then even throughout that, I started to speak at annuals as a keynote speaker, which I didn't think would be possible. I think it helped me to find my purpose, like along with just everything. And I think anything we go through, we don't intentionally think that, we're an inspiration or it's a motivation. We just think like, all right, this is what I'm going through. I'm going to get through it. I'm going to push through. And that's how I looked at it. Like people were like, oh, even when everybody's like, yo, you're a warrior. And I'm just like, I just don't want to die. Like, I just want to see my son. I want to meet my grandkids one day, hopefully. Mm-hmm. Obviously no time soon. He's 16, but I feel like I have so much more that I want to do, so much more that I want to accomplish. And it just reminded me that, all right.
How old were you when you got the diagnosis?
I was 35.
Wow.
And I had just made tech sergeant literally 2 months later, two months before that. Cause I think it had sold on, I think August 1st. I think that's when the increments came through. So you go from this high where you're so excited and so happy. Cause I think anybody who's been in the Air Force knows how hard it is to make E6.
Yeah.
Tech sergeant. So
and
it's something that it wasn't something that's easy for me. It didn't take me, I didn't get to do it quick. So when it happened, it was like a weight off my chest. And then literally 2 months later, I'm getting diagnosed with cancer. So what I try to tell other people that I speak to is enjoy your job and work hard, but don't put so much of an emphasis where it takes away from the things that are really important. And I'm not saying that the Air Force or people's career or military career is not important, but it's never going to be as important as your family. It's never going to be as important as your loved ones and your friends. We often lose sight of that, and we get tunnel vision and we lock in and we're like, all right, this is the goal and I got to do it. And that's where that time management and that work-life balance has to come in. And I had to do a lot better job at that, because I had kind of blocked out everything, and I was so focused and so bent on pursuing or achieving these goals. And yeah, you take away time, and I go back and think about time that I could have spent with my son more, time that I could have spent with friends and family and everything else.
Bro, that's heavy.
Yeah, I didn't mean to start it like that.
Nah, like, we'll see where the conversation goes, man. But like, to be 35 years old and to get that, magnitude of information, like, that's heavy.
Yeah.
Like, what do you,
bro?
I don't know how I would respond to that. You know what I mean? Like, so, and the thing with doctors and stuff like that is like they don't even know either, bro. Like they're giving you, they're using data to come up with it's a lot of times they don't even know.
Yeah.
So that's why the scope is what it is, right? Because they're telling you what, like 12 to 18 months.
Because there were so few cases. There were so few cases of it, and then one of the people that I looked up, Herman Connor, like he's a survivor of this cancer. So obviously you see that, you see hope. And that's the thing too. I think when people get a cancer diagnosis, that's so instrumental, is that you don't lose hope, you don't lose faith in whatever higher power being that you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to lean on it even more than when you get this news. So seeing that was definitely very hopeful. I've communicated with him very minimally, but I spoke to his sister, who's a caregiver, and she's a advocate for this cancer as well. The number one cancer center for this cancer is in MD Anderson in Houston, Texas. So I was looking into that. And then that's another reason why I respect Dr. McGregor so much, because a lot of times doctors are very egotistic, where they don't want to reach out to another doctor because it's like, nah, I can do this. I don't need to reach out.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. McGregor had no he already knew that they were the lead oncologists for this cancer. He had no problem collaborating with them. And oftentimes a lot of people travel to Houston, but another time that's COVID. That's during COVID. No, who's getting on planes and going from different state to state in a weak, fragile state? So the fact that he was willing to reach out to Dr. Nazir Tanir, he's the very lead oncologist who focuses on this, and Dr. Pavlos, he reaches out to them. He goes to conferences and he shares a lot of my stuff. And I've turned myself into an advocate, an ambassador for Dana-Farber. I tell them anything they need. I was featured in their national ad campaign about 2 years ago.
I saw it.
Yeah,
I saw it. I saw the commercials on TV.
That's dope. That's dope.
I think I still have it on my DVR.
That is so dope.
I'll show you.
That is so dope.
I told my wife, I was like, that's my homeboy. She's like, you don't know that guy. I was like, I know him.
Nah, and it's just if in my situation, if I can provide hope and inspiration, and I tell anybody, it doesn't have to be cancer. Anything you're going through, do not give up. Do not quit. I think it's probably not a proven fact, but I feel like this is so true. Your body physically will follow what your mind, incorporates. So if you don't manifest good things, and I'm not saying bad things won't happen regardless, because yes, we know that anything's possible that can happen.
Anything's possible, right?
But I feel like if you can manifest it, you have to speak healing. And in the beginning, when I was diagnosed, a big word for me was if I beat this, I'm going to do this. If I beat this, and then I slowly had to teach myself that when. And the reason why I was so opposed to using when, because I felt like I was being cocky. And I feel like when you're cocky, life has a way of humbling you.
Oh, yes.
So I was so nervous about that, but I was like, you know what? It's not cocky. It's it's manifestation.
Yeah.
You have to speak healing into yourself. And I mean, honestly, one of my friends, they told me, they were like, everything you put into your body, whether it's visually, you hear it, you eat, you drink, it has to tell it that as you're consuming it, it's healing. This water is healing me. This music that I'm listening to is healing me. It's making me happy. It's putting me in a good space. And like you said, surrounding myself with good energy and positive people. And I get it. Certain people look at certain situations where you're overly positive. It can be a little weird, but man, fuck that, bro.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. No. Listen. So as you're explaining this or describing this, I'm thinking about, like, I'm listening, but I'm still thinking to myself of the transition of now you're living with your ex-wife during the pandemic. Because, dude, just the group dynamics right there, like that's got to be something.
It's crazy.
It's got to be wild.
Oh, and I have a girlfriend. So, and then that's another thing that caused a little static, because it's like, granted, she understood. And I mean, I feel bad thinking about it now, because she's like, you didn't even discuss it, which I didn't, because I was thinking about, like I said, tunnel vision.
Yeah.
My son, cancer diagnosis. But now we're in a better space where we were able to communicate. But it's like, when you made that decision, you didn't even talk to me about it. And I mean, I was able to apologize after. And then she understood. I think she understood it. That's why it wasn't a big blow up. But yeah, that whole dynamic, ex-wife, son, girlfriend here in New York. And it's just pandemic. We're all worried. We don't know what the hell's going on.
We don't know what's going on. Yeah. Your son.
Well, then you see these trucks with refrigerated bodies. And then now when you get a diagnosis too, it's like you're immunocompromised. You can't, somebody sneezing, coughing.
I didn't even think of that part.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that part. You're absolutely right.
So you're just living in fear. And that's exactly what it was. It's like somebody sneezing, coughing. I'm sitting here like a common cold could be fatal. So it was a lot. One thing I'll say is my support system was amazing. I don't think I've tried my best. I think if I haven't, this is my time now. Everybody that was supporting me, whether it be social media, in person, people sent meals, people supported me in any kind of way that they could. I can't thank y'all enough. The words thank you don't do it justice. Even you. I mean, like you said, we haven't physically seen each other, but we've been in communication.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Seen pictures, seen, just status updates and everything else. And you seen what I was going through. You reached out. Everybody reached out. We just spoke to our friend Derek. You know what I'm saying? So many people were there to just support me and hold me down. And I mean, like I said, I apologize because the tunnel vision probably didn't allow me to properly thank them. But even now I can tell you the words thank you will never do it any justice, because there's no way I can repay you. There's no way I can thank you. Just know there's so much love and appreciation and gratitude that I have for the people that have been there for me.
Man, bro. Damn, I need to take a break, dude.
Even thinking about it now, like it's going to be 5 years this September. And I'll tell you, bro, like I met some amazing people. Chad Alexander was a dude who was diagnosed like a month before me, lived in the UK. His wife, Anita, his son, Rome, his daughter, Milan. Me and him would talk all the time, bro. All the time. Because, I think it's different. When you're going through a diagnosis, something like that, you have people that you can kind of relate to. You know what I'm saying? People that you can share, like, yo, you got this symptom, I got this symptom. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was something that I learned because he had the blood in the urine, and that's what prompted him to go to the hospital. And you also learn about the different healthcare throughout the world because he's out in the UK, and it's very different than here. Even the way he structured his appointments. Like my cancer center, I do everything in one day. Morning starts, I tell him get me in early. We're military. Especially when I see how crowded the cancer center gets, get me in there at 6 o'clock. I'll get there 6 o'clock, do my labs. Then usually about an hour and a half, you see your oncologist. And then from there, he has to review your labs to make sure that you're okay to go through treatment. His was so broken up and so different that it was like he would have to go in the day before his appointment, do labs, go home, come back the next day. Then they would do treatment. So, but shout out.
Are you guys still in contact?
Unfortunately, like I think within that first year, Chad passed away. So that was a really tough time. Yeah, rest in peace to Chad for sure. He was a DJ, music lover, just an amazing dude, an amazing dad, amazing husband. Did so many amazing things in his community because even just the love and support that I still see people going out to his memorials is beautiful. And we used to just talk like almost every day. And I mean, I have countless stories of people, so I don't want to start naming too many people or not naming people to offend or hurt anybody. But that was my first cancer friend that I made, going through it because he was diagnosed a month before me. And just think what that does for your mental too. You're going through something similar. You end up with a lot of survivor's remorse. Like, it's like, well, you're looking to see this amazing person and I start to try to compare myself and looking like I'm nowhere near as a great guy like he is. Why am I still here? Why is he not? So that, like I said, that all has played into my life and how I live it. And I try to just be a good person, which I've always been. I feel I've been a good person. I've been a good friend. I try to be there for the people that I love and that I care about and support everything that they do. But it's like now I feel like I'm more indebted, like, because there's people that I'm here because of other people. I don't doubt for a second that they're watching out for me. He's up there looking down on me and it's like he's probably guiding me. It might sound crazy, but I don't take it for granted. I was able to meet his wife and kids in person. We still communicate. They had visited New York City. I was able to take them around, took them to the Biggie mural, the Brooklyn Bridge. And like I said, there's a couple other stories of people that I met, but rest in peace to all of them. And anybody battling cancer or any other terminal illness, just keep going. Create that checklist of things that you have in your life that you want to accomplish, things that you want to see, things that you want to try. And even if you're not dealing with any of this, do it. What are you waiting for? Like, and hopefully, I think this has also changed me too. In the military, we're around people who constantly complain. Not everybody, but the complainers, the ones who, and I get it. I'm not saying everything is always peaches and cream, but I feel like if there's a solution or if there's a problem or things that you want to get through, complaining is not going to help you get there. You got to create action, one foot in front of the other. And we kind of hit on it earlier. It's like, once my perspective on life changed, it kind of changed a lot. And like I said, once I started getting more gratitude, I feel like things started happening for me and things started moving in a positive direction. This whole treatment was a roller coaster, but I told you earlier, it's like if it's storming outside, I'm not gonna cry in the storm. I'm gonna go dance in the rain. You know, I'd rather be happy. I feel better. My mental health, everything. The people that want to be around me. I think I want to be a good, energetic person. And same thing, relationships I have with my nurses, my doctors. I truly, and you know, you witness it. You witness people who are going through this, and I'm not judging anybody. It's very difficult because they, you know, you can be mean, you could, you know, come off, you could be snippy. I always make my business to when I'm around my nurses, I'm grateful because the job that they're doing to the frontline workers, medical workers, especially oncology nurses and PAs and doctors, it's amazing, man. Like they're,
dude, like, so, you know, nothing related to like cancer or anything remotely close to what you experienced, but I will share that when my daughter was born, my daughter was premature, 2 months. So my daughter was born 2 pounds, 15 ounces, like, you know, almost 3 pounds, like smaller than a football. And she was born in Manhattan. She was born in Lenox Hill. Shout out to Lenox Hill and the whole team over there with like the way, dude, like the way that they had their whole thing structured, bro. The NICU nurses, dude, like you don't understand the
angels, bro.
Like angels, dude, angels, bro. Yeah. Like my daughter was born, we literally went to the opposite side of the floor to the NICU. They were waiting. There was like a team of like 4 people waiting, and I'm there. You know what I mean? And I'm just like watching them sew a line into her belly button. Wow. She's sewing a line, dude, to be able to like, you know, take blood, whatever. Just like, man, just incredible, right? That there's people who, and you got to think too, right? So like my daughter was in the NICU for a month, for 30 days. So we're seeing these people and we're interacting with them for 30 days, right? Yeah. Like, you know, me and my wife would take turns. Like I would go in the daytime, or my wife would go in the daytime, and then I would go at night. So someone was always with Brooke. You know what I mean? But with that being said, you start to learn all the folks that work in this unit. Like now you're like on a first name basis with them, and they know who's coming and you know, that kind of thing. But then you got to think, you leave. You leave. Like, you know, and now there's like a whole nother, like there's a whole nother family and then the thing is like, it's not like everyone's in that unit because they're not all premature, you know, like some dude, like they were babies that were there full term, but just had some kind of an issue, some kind of issue with their lungs or so there's no right or wrong. No. But you're kind of like, you ever read the book, The Tale of Two Cities? Yeah. Okay. So like the very opening, right? Like it was the worst of times, it was the best of times, right? So I always think about that where like 2 people could be in the same space, but having 2 different experiences. New York City is the best example of that.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Like you could be on a subway car, and on that subway car, you got someone homeless and you got someone
a millionaire probably.
Right? It's,
exactly.
It's so wild that and they're in the same space. So going back with like to the whole NICU thing, you know, I'm in the NICU because my daughter is, she was born 2 months early. And there's a few things that need to happen before they could like let us leave with her. And ultimately she needed to be able to figure out how to breathe and breathe and like drink milk, right?
Got you.
At the same time, right? Because in the beginning she had a feeding tube. Okay. So they're like, yeah, she needs to become a little bit. She needs to get a little heavier. She needs to be able to do this, and then you know, like she's good to go home. But then in the same exact NICU, you have someone else who's next to you something completely different that they're experiencing. You know what I mean?
Have you ever seen This Is Us?
This Is Us. No, I never seen. Like my wife has.
So if you ever get a chance, that's kind of similar to how it started out. Basically, it's a husband and wife. They're pregnant with triplets. They end up losing one of the triplets, and then another child is abandoned at a firehouse. So they look at it like they said, it's like, if life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. So they adopted this other child. I don't want to ruin it for anybody who hasn't seen it, but if you ever get a chance, I'm pretty sure if your wife's watched it, she'll watch it again.
Okay.
It's an amazing show, but like you said, a tale of two cities where people are going through in the same space, but two completely different experiences, two very different perspectives and how we look at it. But just like you said on the subway, that person who's a millionaire, or they have let's say they work on Wall Street, maybe not a millionaire, but they're very well off. They're wealthy.
They're not homeless.
Exactly. They're not homeless compared to someone who's homeless, because I also look at it like that too, because it's all perspective. That homeless person could very well be happy just at a hard time in their life. And then also that person who's well off could be miserable. Because we all know, yes, money is great. We love it. It gives us the freedom to do the things that we like to do, but it's not the end all be all. So I'm just saying that money doesn't negate you from having problems or having issues, or going through hard times. I look at it like this too. Look, Steve Jobs had cancer. All the money in the world. You know what I'm saying? So I'm pretty sure people would trade all of that for their health in an instant. Because you can't take it with you. Denzel's, I think, not even Denzel, you can scratch that. But just anybody, you can't, there's no hearse behind you when you go. Once your time is your time. So that doesn't mean go be reckless with your money, be smart with your money, but just know that you're here to enjoy, and the most valuable thing that we could ever get in this world is time. And don't take it for granted,
Wow. So, dude, I don't mean to keep bringing up stuff. I just want to like
this is why we here. I want to dissect it. This is why we here.
So while you're in Boston in the pandemic, living with your ex-wife, your son's probably staying at home. He's doing like remote work.
Remote working, right? Yeah.
You're ill. Are you losing weight? Or
yeah, dude. I got down. So I'm about 228 right now. At my lowest through this, and even at that time before I got diagnosed, I want to say my weight was probably around between 225, 218, which was where I like to be at anyway.
Straight papi chulo right there. Straight PSI for y'all. If y'all don't know what I'm talking about, straight. What do you say? Two what?
I was like 220. I'm 228 now. At that time, I was between 225
of pure pressure.
So at that time, I think I had got down to like 170.
Damn,
like, bro, my clothes were huge. My clothes were huge. I mean, I had to get new clothes, everything. Yeah, I got real skinny. Yeah, man.
Wow.
Face got sunk in.
Yeah.
You figure as you start treatment, my eyebrows were gone, facial hair gone, everything gone. So and that's the mental aspect of it. And I think other cancer patients will tell you that's still a very difficult time, because you figure we associate so much of our identities to our hair. Women, men, our beard, our facial hair. Like, we know how, look at dudes in the military when we do mustache march. Their wife might hate it or love it. Once people retire and they're able to get out and grow the beards, because you're able to get that identity back, because you're able to kind of groom yourself to your style.
Yep. It's what you want to do.
So at this point, when you take that away from you, you just realize that you're losing a bit of control that you have. Because, throughout day-to-day life, we have very little control over everything else and the outside noise. But the way we dress, the way we groom ourselves, it was tough. And like I said, still trying to juggle a relationship back in New York. And then also my ex-wife, she has other kids. So there's Cameron. He's older than Junior. He was 5 years old when we were married, and then we had Junior. And then after we broke up, she had another child, Soraya. So they're like my kids. I love them. I love them like my own. So they're all there. And these are kids that I spend time with. And then the same thing with my girlfriend's kids. She has 2 kids as well. She has 2 boys, Jordan and Cardi. I think it's just a man thing though. Like, not saying that I want to walk around and be egotistical, but to have people that at one point, I'm pretty sure they probably still do. I don't want to, boost myself, but that look up to you. And when you feel so vulnerable, so weak, it was at the time, looking back at it, I was embarrassed, and I was a little, like I said, vulnerable. But now looking back at it, I'm a lot better. But at that time, it was a major adjustment, and it kind of you kind of isolate yourself. I would stay in bed all day. And it took a lot. When my son would come out with me, we would go in the backyard. We ended up getting a hammock there.
Mm-hmm.
I grew a greater appreciation for nature. It's the things that we often take for granted. You know, making it home from a trip wherever from work is such an underrated blessing that we don't often look at. You know, coming home and making it, even when making it here from the trek from, you know, we coming from New York, that's a blessing. Making it to your destination is a major, major blessing. That we often take for granted. You think it's just going to happen. You think it's just supposed to happen. And that often isn't it. So like I grew that appreciation literally laying in the backyard when the weather was nice, just laying in the hammock, just watching the clouds just kind of float across the sky, sitting there having conversations with my son. At that time, he's a lot younger. Now he's older. So we have some really good conversations now that he's older. The questions that he asks, you know, he's growing into his manhood at 16. So the things that I didn't get to, you know, at his age. But at that time at 11, you know, he's exploring, he's, you know, liking girls or, you know, juggling his social life with his friends. I'm not going to say it was meant to happen, but I feel like sometimes these things are supposed to happen because they put you in places where you're supposed to be when you need to be there.
I think it's also about your perspective too, man. You know what I mean? Because you could easily go down this tunnel of desperation and woe me and bitterness and anger and maybe, I don't know if you experienced any of that.
I wanted you to finish the thought.
Okay.
But I went through all of that. I went through all of that. And I'm pretty sure there were people who were around me that probably hated being around me at times. And I'm not proud of that. But I definitely went through everything you just listed. I went through each and every one of it. You know, it's a wave. It's a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster. I'd have my hopeful, positive moments, and then I had my ones where it was like, yo, this is over. Like, I don't want to do this no more. If this is what fighting is, I'm not no warrior. I don't want this. And then, like I said, it came in waves. I never really stayed down too long. That's something that I'm proud of. But I won't sit here in front like I'm a superhuman person and I made it all look so easy because it wasn't. It wasn't, man. Every day, I want to say every day was a struggle, but every day I'd wake up, it's like you take that deep breath and it's like, okay, I got another one. And it's just like when I think marathon runners or you're taking a long trek, it's just one foot in front of the other.
You know, you're a living testament of that though, bro. You know what I mean? Like nobody could dispute that. Like you know, your testimony is real. You know what I mean? Like none of this is made up.
Nah,
you know
not
what
at
I mean?
all.
So, man, bro.
I mean, you can't have a testimony without a test, right?
Right. 100%.
Exactly.
So listen, so folks that are like listening and watching, they maybe not everyone knows how the intricacies of being in the military on active duty, right? Because there's different statuses, right? So you're a full-time military. You're a recruiter. You're a health professions recruiter, HP, which is a second tier position within recruiting. So you come into recruiting as an enlisted accessions recruiter, which is high school, some college levels type stuff. And if you're good, and they want to keep you around, you move up to a second level. And the health professions is one of those second levels. But with that being, I know I'm speaking kind of like,
you're good.
Right? So I'm just trying to like set it
paint
up
the picture. I got
paint
you.
the picture. So what it's important to understand is that unlike maybe a corporate job or like it's different in the military. There's different regulations. You can't just stay home because you're sick. Now your thing is your situation different, but it doesn't change the fact that there still needs to be understanding and support from your superiors, right? What was that like?
Man, it was amazing. And shout out to now Colonel. At the time, she was Lieutenant Colonel Kimberly Barr. Now it's Colonel Kimberly Barr. She's probably one of my best commanders I've ever had. First Sergeant, shout to you as a First Sergeant. I think you know how important that position is. Zach Brown, he's now retired. Having their support. And then also being that we covered New York with the 318th Recruiting Squadron it basically covers the Northeast. So the fact that I was doing treatment in Boston, one of our flights, F flight, is out there in Boston. They're in Burlington, Mass. At the time, I think you know him as well. Now Chief Maldonado. He was the flight chief in that office.
Maldonado. What's his first name?
I believe it's Gervasio. I don't want to hack it. It's I think it's Gervasio.
I might.
I don't want to chop it up.
Yeah.
I just call him. Everybody calls him Maldi. You know how we go. With the nicknames. But he was the flight chief at the time. Anything I needed a ride or whatever. Even now, when I go out to Boston, they're like, if you need to borrow a Gov, get to your appointments, you're good to go. But that support was so huge, and oddly enough, that's a good thing that came from COVID because, like you said, we got to go to work. We got things we got to do. But with COVID, most places went to teleworking. So I was able to still do my job. I asked my commander because I wanted to keep my mind sharp. And at this time, at that point, I was about 36 credits away from my bachelor's degree. No time in my career have I ever maxed out my tuition assistance. So for those who don't know, we get $4,500 a year every fiscal year for tuition assistance. You figure most college classes are about $250 per credit hour, so it's about $750, for a class. I think I may have used a portion of it. I've taken one class probably every year throughout my career up to this point because I came in with an associate's degree. So at this point, I'm asking the commander. She's recommending me books. She's telling me not to focus on work, but I'm asking her, I'm begging her, ma'am, I want to still do my job. I still want to do it. At that time, I was a nurse corps recruiter. So I'm trying to find out ways to get them into the hospital to recruit. Obviously, we couldn't get in, but I'm connecting. I'm networking my nurses. Anybody that wants to join the Air Force, I'm still recruiting as I'm doing chemotherapy.
Wow.
So it was just crazy.
Wow.
I think at that point, I was like the Booster Club vice president. I was a part of the AFRS 5-6 that had just stood up that year. I was the media manager, so I managed the social media, created the Twitter account, the Facebook, the Instagram. All this stuff I attribute to keeping me busy and keeping me occupied. And I don't even want to say busy. I hate because there's such a difference between busy and productive. It kept me productive because you can be busy and do nothing, like the hamster in the hamster wheel. You're running, but you're not going anywhere.
Right.
So that's what I attribute busy to. So I was able to be productive. And then I asked the commander, because you know how TA goes, you got to get approval. You got to go through your supervisor. If you can manage work and whatever else. She was like, no, you're good. Because only if you're on like a UIF, which is unfavorable information or a file or whatever else. She was like, no, if you want to go to school, by all means, if you feel you can manage it. So I was like, all right, at this time, I'm taking 2-3 classes a semester. Because I'm like, you know what? 12 to 18 months, I at least want to have my degree. Because I told my son, you got to go to school. So I can't tell him to go to school if I don't even have my degree. So that kind of motivated me to do that. But they supported me with whatever I needed to do. I had a DO at the time. She came out to chemo with me. And at that time, my chemo was long. I had like a 5 to 6 hour chemotherapy infusion. Now they're a lot shorter. They I have the 2 chemos that I'm on now. It's 15 minutes for one and like 30 minutes for another one. At that time, I was taking 5 hours, 6 hours.
Whoa.
Yeah, carboplatin and carbotaxol. I was on those 2, and they had to give me Benadryl. They call it a Benadryl nap. So they would give me Benadryl. It would knock me out, and I would just be hooked up in the hospital bed getting chemo as I'm passed out. And then I'd wake up towards the end and have like an hour and a half, 2 hours left.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It was Lieutenant Colonel. I think she got promoted as well too. But at that time, it was Major Hutchison, and now she's Lieutenant Colonel. She came out. Like I said, there was always somebody in that leadership team that was there to support me. And they asked me, like, because sometimes you get leadership and it can be fraudulent. They're coming out just to check a box because they don't want their supervisor or their boss or a group chief or a group commander asking about you, and they're not able to answer it. So they're just checking a box to say, oh, yeah. And some people were like that. But the leaders that I had, man, phenomenal. And it inspires me to try to be there. And that's what taught me to be a leader. I've had great mentors throughout my career. I've been in 17 years, but just the way they handled my situation. And I didn't want any favoritism. I didn't want to be under a microscope. I didn't want to be under a spotlight. That's why I was like, anything I can do. When people asked if I would speak at their annuals, and because like you said, resiliency is a big, big piece for the military and for the veteran community. I think just what we do on a day-to-day basis, deployments, TDYs, families, holding a family and a household together as you move every 3 to 4 years. Your kids, they change schools. They have to make friends. The sacrifices they make, the sacrifices we make as military members. When you think about it and you really sit down, and when people are looking at it like, how do you do this? And I'm like, it's normal for us. I think we operate in that chaos,
Yeah, man. But Listen, you're being extremely humble. You're being extremely humble, man. But so here's the thing. So as a first sergeant, right? Like I was a first sergeant for.
Shout out to the first sergeants, man. Like I said, especially the ones that do it for the right reasons, man. I got so much love and respect for you. Y'all, for those that don't know, first sergeants are on call 24/7. You have a phone. Anything that happens in the unit, Red Cross messages. And I have another story for first sergeants from when I was deployed with my grandmother. But shout to y'all, man. Y'all are really selfless individuals. You give up so much of your personal time. And y'all are literally, even though we're all military members, we're on call, but y'all are really on call 24/7, 365, 366 on a leap year. Like that time comes away from your family. That phone rings, y'all are usually, if y'all don't answer right away, y'all are calling right back. Y'all are just there for so many people. The things that y'all experience and that y'all go through. Shout to y'all. I didn't want to go, my bad. I'm sorry.
It's a really interesting position to hold within an organization. And it doesn't really equate to the civilian side of the house, right? So the best way for me to describe the job, because I want to describe it first before I answer your question. My family asked me, like, what do you do? What's a first sergeant? I was like, listen, consigliere. That is the job. Like, you have a pulse on what is happening over here. You're a buffer for the head honcho, right? You're a buffer for the commander, and you advise, you're a trusted advisor, but ultimately you're dealing with a wide range of human resource issues like you wouldn't even think of, you know what I mean? But to answer your question, why I want to become a first sergeant, number one, I just have a genuine thing for people, right? Obviously I have a podcast where I'm interested in talking to folks. I like to listen to folks. I think it's important to never judge anyone at their lowest. Right. So these were things that I wanted to like bring into that position, but ultimately I just have an interest in, like, I care for folks, you know what I mean? So I'm going to go back a little bit. So I'm stationed at MacDill Air Force Base. This is 2006.
That's Tampa, right?
I'm in Tampa. So I'm married at the time, and it's my my childhood girlfriend. We're married. So ultimately, I'm leaving to Korea on a Monday, where we've moved out of our apartment. We're living on base. We're in TLF. Stuff. Half of the stuff is in storage. Half of the stuff is in the car. It's like you said, right? We're moving around. So. And listen, the details of what exactly happened, like I'm not going to get into all that. Ultimately, there was a domestic dispute in TLF.
Wow.
So I leave because I want to, like, number one, remove myself from what was going on. And I didn't need no smoke with security forces or any of that jazz, right? So long story short, I leave base, I stay at a buddy's house, I come back in the morning. When I come back in the morning, immediately, I'm recognized at the gate, I'm told to pull over. Another police car comes, and I already know that I kind of have an idea of what's going to happen. So we end up going to the police station on the base, and I'm being like, I'm sitting in a room, and they're like, hey, you have to wait here until your first sergeant comes. I'm like, okay. So I'm patiently, just about an hour goes by. This first sergeant comes in, and I don't remember her name. This is 06. Very first thing the first sergeant tells me, he walks in and says, how can I help you? What can I do to help you? First thing, it was like, obviously she greeted me, but that was the first thing. What can I do to help you? Now, you got to understand, dude, like, I'm already signed out from base. Like, I'm signed out already. I'm signed out. I moved out of my apartment. Stuff is in storage. My flight is Monday. And all I could think of, I'm like, ma'am, I really need to be on that plane Monday. I need to be on that plane. Because you know as well as I know, that whole entire thing could have just stopped right there.
Absolutely.
Like, you're not getting on that plane until we figure this out.
Yep.
You know, it's, you know, but I also think, knowing what I know now, because then I was a lot younger, but what I know now as a, you know, experience, tenure, whatever you want to call it, is like, if I put myself in her shoes, the best thing for me to do is to get this guy on this plane.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, there's a whole slew of things that are going to need to happen that maybe, you know, she didn't want to get into.
Yeah.
So ultimately, everything worked out. I got on the flight. I head out to Korea, do my time in Korea. Things don't work out with me and my wife. We separate, we divorce. But current, you know, like when I was doing the job as first sergeant, that was the first thing I would say to folks, like, how can I help you?
Yeah. Like,
how can I help you? And just, you know, because ultimately, man, like, if you're in a position of authority at that level, that where you have the ear of the commander, you know, and a lot of us in the military, we don't get to have a personal relationship with the commander. You have a relationship with the commander, right?
Yep.
A personal relationship, that's kind of far and few in between, you know, like to the point where, you know, they're calling you because they're having issues with their wife or they need someone to vent to. You know what? Like, who does the commander go to vent to? Yeah. You know what I mean? So it was, that's why I ended up wanting to do the job. Ultimately, was because I wanted to, you know, share my experiences, but also, you know, like be like a beacon of like positivity and resiliency for this, you know, next generation of service member. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was my thing, man.
Yeah, the people who are going to replace you. And like you said, who does the commander get to talk to, but also who do you guys get to talk to as well? Because I think because I've seen behind the curtain, and alone from domestic situations or anything else, you guys deal with people whose family members pass away. Like, you are the first people who are there. And that's why I say I always have a ton of love and respect for all the first sergeants, man. Like, because who do you guys get to talk to too? Like, you guys sometimes have that stuff. I know the shirts typically have a network within the shirts because you need that. You need your wingmen, you know, your brothers and sisters that you can lean on, because a lot of that stuff is heavy. You guys deal with a lot of heavy stuff. You guys are the first responders often to major situations. And like I said, I know the stuff that I've been through in the Air Force. I've always had an amazing shirt that's been there. That's, like you said, how can they help me? And they've been there to help me from start to finish. So that's why I say, man, like, big ups to y'all.
Yeah, man. It's I'm so glad that I got a chance to have that, hold that position. And I'm also glad that I was able to retire as a first sergeant.
With your diamond.
Like, I didn't, like I knew that when I took the diamond off, it was because I was retiring. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man.
So obviously jumping out of first sergeant, what about fatherhood? Like, how was that? Like, dude, I mean, like, especially like you said, your daughter was premature, and obviously I got to see them earlier. She's beautiful. Your family's beautiful. It's amazing. Bro. What's your take on fatherhood, man? Like, how is that? Especially a daughter. See, I have a son, and I mean, granted, my son's sister, I look at her like my daughter as well. So I kind of have a little bit, but I know it's different. Like with your daughter, like girls are daddy's girls. Yeah. And I could see that, right? When she came in, she wanted to know what you were doing. And
oh yeah, man. So I never met my father.
Me neither.
Oh wow, really?
We'll get to that later.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I never met my father. I don't even have a picture of my father. Yeah. Just you know, my mom was very she was very, how would I put this? Eccentric, eccentric, and she told beautiful stories, bro. Yeah. The thing is, like, you wouldn't know what, like, how much of that is she being creative, and how much of that is like real, true. Like, you know what I mean? So I gotta take her, you know, dude, like the story that she told me was that my father was a firefighter. No, I take that back. His father was a firefighter.
Okay.
And he was left in a motel room by his mother in the bathroom. The firefighters respond. And according to my mom, the firefighter one of the firefighters on scene had the last name Ortiz, found the baby, adopted the baby. And that's how I have the last name Ortiz. Bro, how much of that is true? I don't know. I don't know, man. But in any case, man, for the longest time, man, like, especially when I got to like 35, I'm like, man, you know, I'm meeting people, I'm in these relationships, but there's just all these flags all over the place. And I'm just kind of like, man, I can't, you know, this is not the person to definitely have children with. You know what I mean? Yeah. So in any case, I would always pray though, and I would always say, I would pray for the opportunity to be a father, and I would also in my prayer say, Lord, like if you allow me this, I will do it right. Like I want to be involved in every step of the way, and that was just always my prayer, man. Always my prayer. I met my wife. I think I was 37 when we met. No, we were 36. I was 36. I forget the numbers and everything, but what's really wild is they told us that the odds of us having a child were very low. Wow. So that was like, we did IVF. We did 2 rounds of IVF.
That's like you said earlier with doctors, like they go based off some data.
Yeah,
they're not the final decision maker.
Right, right. So they're like, listen, there's nothing wrong with you guys. It's just that she's a little older. She's not producing eggs like a 20-year-old, obviously. So the odds are extremely low. And then she was bummed about it, and she was depressed about it. You know what I mean? And we were trying, and it just wasn't happening. And then she wanted to do another round of IVF. I was like, no, like I don't think that shit's expensive. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like
and the emotional toll as well too.
That part, right? Yeah. So I said, hey, like I think what we could do is maybe like evaluate kind of like how we're doing things, and maybe switch a few things up. Like maybe we slow down on the going out. Maybe we slow down with the, because dude, we're hanging out, dude. We're hanging out in the city. We're going to happy hours. We're going to concerts. We're jogging in Central Park. So I'm just like, hey, like maybe we just kind of like recenter ourselves a little bit. So she comes back because at this time I'm off of active duty. Okay. So I'm off of active duty, and we're living in Manhattan. So my wife comes home one day. She's like, hey, like I ran into my girlfriend. She told me about this like therapist who specializes in fertility. Bro, I'm like, great, no problem. Like, let's see what, but just like anything else, I know that when you're going to do something like that, you have to commit to what they're, that's not like a one-off thing, So sure enough, dude, it was acupuncture, and it was 3 times a week.
Yeah. I'll get to you with that, because I incorporated acupuncture in my cancer treatment.
Really?
But
yeah.
No.
So she starts going, and then, dude, like I have so much like respect for my wife, dude. Like, she's working downtown Manhattan. This acupuncturist is in Midtown. Wow. Now, my wife is leaving her office on Wall Street, taking the train or an Uber or a cab up to acupuncture, getting it. Like she's doing it 3 days a week.
Dedication, commitment. Yeah.
Right? And then like, they're like, oh, they had like these herbal teas. This is a morning tea. This is a night tea. While this is all happening, I end up going on a trip of a lifetime to Vietnam. So I go to Vietnam. So, and I've talked about this on the podcast a bunch of times, but So I go to Vietnam, and what we do in Vietnam is that we ride dirt bikes from Saigon to Hanoi.
Nice.
So it's like 2 weeks.
Okay.
So it's me, one of my buddies invited me, and there's two of his buddies. Bro, an amazing time, dude. Like in terms of just, it's different when you go visit somewhere and you're in a car or you're on a bus and you're being toured around. Mm-hmm. Dude, it's different when you're like on a motorcycle because you're just seeing this. You know what I mean? You're just
your senses are like on 10. Your senses are just everything. Yeah.
Incredible. On this trip, we're eating just amazing foods, dude. Amazing foods, right? And it's different every day because every night we're in a different place. Oh, that's dope. So we're, one day it could be a big city. The next day it could be a little village. That's dope. And it's their version of like an Airbnb kind of thing. And amazing, bro. Absolutely amazing. However, the very last day, the guy who put the trip together, the whole time that we're on this trip, every time we go somewhere, he asks, do they have snake? And, we couldn't find it, right? Mm-hmm. The reason why we can't find it is because it's a delicacy. There's only not everyone has it like that. You know? So we end up finding this place outside of Hanoi, like 20 minutes outside of Hanoi, that serves snake. That's what they do.
Any specific type of snake?
Brother, we get there. We take a cab from Hanoi to this, place. The very first thing when you walk in, it's just a bunch of wooden cages. Yeah. And they got them spread out by species and size and weight and all this jazz. You know what I mean? Yeah. So basically you're talking to the guy that okay, what species, and then different species would be more money. You know what I mean? Gotcha. So we wanted king cobra. Wow. So they get a king cobra, and they're like, oh, for you guys. I forget. It might have been 12 kilos or something. Jeez. I don't know, bro, but it was, dude, this guy comes out, the guy's talking to us. He has a snake handler. So the guy's talking to us in his broken English. While he's talking to us, he's talking to the other guy in Vietnamese. This guy's handling, he pulls out this king cobra out of this.
It's alive.
It's alive, bro. So we're like, okay. So we say, okay, now we go upstairs. Upstairs is where the dining room is. Okay. And there's a room off to the side where he's handling now they're showing us the king cobra. They grab it, they pinch it, he flares up, they pinch, fangs come out, take the fangs right off, fangs fall on. This is all happening in front of us. Then they do an incision and they take the heart out. The heart's pumping and they put it in a shot glass with blood from the snake. Yeah. So it's customary that you take a shot of the bio and the blood.
What did that taste like?
I don't remember, bro.
You just quick.
Yeah, I was just I can't believe I'm doing this, but exactly. I'll do anything for a story.
That's a hell of. I don't even think you're done yet, but that's a hell of a story.
So we take a shot of the bio, we take a shot of the blood. The person who puts it together is customary. They eat the heart. So my buddy takes a shot of the heart's still pumping, dude.
It's beating still.
It's beating in the shot glass. I'll show you a video.
Okay. I want to see this.
Takes a shot of the with the blood with the heart. Now, they have these huge jars with king cobra in it, and it's it's rice liquor, but infused with the venom from the,
Y'all take a shot of the venom?
Yeah, bro. But it's infused. It's
okay.
it's like a
so it's
a
not
rice.
As potent.
It's a rice liquor. It's
okay.
Similar to sake and soju.
So it's not potent to where it could hurt y'all.
No. So now what they're doing with the snake is they're making all these different platters. So they're bringing out they made 2 different soups. They're bringing it out steamed.
This
sauteed.
Is in the back, or is it like Korean barbecue where it's
no? They're doing it and they're bringing it out. So they bring it out steamed, sauteed, fried. It's a big snake, bro. You know what I mean? They take the whatever bones it has. I don't even.
Yeah, the tiny little skeletal systems.
And they make like a fried rice with it. So like they're frying the bones. It's wild. So they bring all this out. King cobras have 2 penises. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, bro. That's crazy, dude. So
like I see it.
Yeah, like that. Like it's in a soup.
Oh wow.
It's in a soup. So now every time that we're like eating, every time they bring out a dish, now we're taking shots of the rice liquor, and then they don't just serve you like you don't just order a beer. They bring you a case of beer, and you get charged for what you drink.
Oh wow, that's dope. I like that concept.
Right? Like, so, but think about it. It's a very good concept because who says, nah, like I'm good. You bring out a 24 pack.
It's probably gonna be gone.
We're gonna drink a 24 pack. Like we're not leaving here until it's done.
Exactly.
So this whole thing happens, and at the very end, the guy's like, because now we're like hammered. We're hammered. We ate all this food. We didn't take shots. We took shots of bio and blood and all this stuff. And like we're in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Right. So the guy's telling me, he's like, hey, I think that he thought that we were gonna go off to like some like brothel or something. Oh. That's what I thought. He was like, because he kept saying like, be careful tonight, you're very fertile. Be careful, you're very fertile, right? This is what he's telling us. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm hammered. I'm like, okay, I'm fertile. Got it. Bro, got back from that trip. Me and the other guy that were trying to get pregnant, we got pregnant, dude.
So it's like a aphrodisiac kind of fertility.
Listen, bro, I don't know. Like, I can't tell you for certain that's exactly what it was. Maybe it was a combination of her therapeutic thing and no clue, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like so now we get pregnant, and like now this prayer that I have, right, is being answered, right? And I just remember like always having pressure from my family, like, yo, like when you gonna have a kid, like when
are you older, what's
going on, or I've even had the like friends of like close friends, like their family members, because you're so close to people that like they're his aunts, and them are like, I've been at like a Spanish house party. You know what that's like, right? It's like all the windows are open, they're frying food, the whole thing. You got the drunk aunt. She's in the kitchen, and she's pressing you like against. She's like, yo, like you like girls, like because now they think you gay, right?
You ain't got a baby yet,
Like I'm like, nah, like I'm not gonna have kids just because, But the pressures of getting pregnant are one thing. The pressure of staying pregnant is a whole nother thing. I tell people that all the time. Like it wasn't like, oh, like, dude, like we were high risk. You know what I mean? So it's this whole thing. Like I can't tell you all the different like things my wife had to go through and like all these different like tests that she had to take to make sure, dude, it was. So I always tell people like the staying pregnant for me was probably one of the bigger stressors than getting pregnant, But to answer your question, man, like as being a dad, right, was it's the most fulfilling thing that I've ever experienced. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think like the older you get, man, like the more jaded you get, and like there's just certain things you'll tolerate or you won't tolerate, and like the older you get, you're just like I'm not for that, like I'm off, right? With that being said, you think that you get to a point where like you just have no more love to give, right? Or like you're just kind of like, it's not being cold-hearted. It's just kind of like you. And then in the military too, like just seeing all these different things that the average person doesn't get a chance to see. You kind of like, it does something to you. It does something to your soul. You know what I mean? And maybe not for everyone, but for me, it was like this chamber that I didn't know I had was like unlocked. And bro, like, it's just the most fulfilling thing. You know what I mean? Like I can't I can't speak about it enough. I just absolutely love, like, my daughter's like my best friend, man. And then the cool thing, man, is like, for me, is teaching her stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like, just anything, man. Like, you know, and then the cool thing is, as she's getting older, her questions, man, they're just, I'm like, where are you getting this from?
You're
know,
only this age, and yeah.
Wait till we're done with this and you get a chance to talk with her for a little bit. She's, dude, like, we were having a conversation yesterday about being baptized. I don't know where she got this from.
Yeah.
And I had to explain, like, what does it mean to be baptized? And why do people as adults get baptized? And what does it mean to be a born again Christian? Like,
yeah.
The dinner conversation yesterday was something else, dude.
That's so cool.
It was wild, man.
No, it's cool. Like, same thing. Like, I say appreciate it. I don't know the difference of, you know, with girls and boys as far as like teenagers, because obviously my son's 16, but when he was younger, it was the same thing. The car rides to daycare, the car rides to the CDC or the school, when we would fly somewhere, when going back and forth, just like you said, you're just seeing them from, like you said, this small being to where now they're growing, they're developing, their minds are growing, the questions that they have, the things that they're interested in. You see their personality start to really flourish in their character. Well, my son as he's getting older, you know, his interests are changing. Obviously, he's into girls more now. He's going his hormones and just he's into his friends a lot more. So, like, I love it. But tapping into that part of you, like, that we feel, because I think we get accustomed to the world. The world is a cruel, cold place, and I think we often try to protect ourselves, and we try to just, like, we become numb, or we just adjust and adapt to it, where we kind of know how to navigate to protect ourselves, to protect our mental health, our well-being, and then we try to, you know, obviously protect our kids in that aspect too. So it's just like loving somebody else that you never thought you could love that much, especially at a time when you're going through so much. So yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy. And like I said, it's beautiful to see. I love all my friends that have daughters, because it's a whole different perspective. My son is a mama's boy. So when all my friends, I think, that have daughters, their daughters are daddy's girls. Like, I think that's just how it genetically happens. You know, that's how it plays out. So it's just beautiful to see.
It's funny though, if you put my daughter on the spot, she'll tell you that she's a mama's girl. And then, like, when nobody's around, she comes to me, she's like, Dad, like, deep down inside, I'm a daddy's girl, but I can't say it in front of Mom. I'm like,
because she don't want to hurt her feelings.
Yeah, dude.
She don't want to hurt her feelings.
Yeah, man. It's funny, man. It's good. No, so, you know what I wanted to ask you, El, was what made you join the Air Force?
Oh man, you want that on here?
Sure, why not?
Oh man, so I joined the Air Force back in 2007. I'm not gonna sit here and say most people, you know, 9/11. I was a sophomore in high school in New York City, so I kind of know what that felt like. And I think, like most any other high school athlete, I thought I was going to the NBA. I thought I was going to have like a growth spurt and get to like 6'6". Instead, I stopped at 6 feet. But I ended up, you know, being awarded a state. I was in a group home. You know, group home age, you age out at 18. So you kind of, the next thing they kind of position you for is to get a Section 8 apartment and set you up for Medicaid and public assistance. I grew up on food stamps, welfare, all that other stuff. You know, my mom didn't raise me. My grandmother did. And her health declined. So
I was awarded a state too.
Yeah, the whole time. So I was in the group. I was in Children's Village. I was in the same facility that DMX was in, up in Dobbs Ferry, New York.
Really?
Yeah, I was up there.
I was it was called Independence Inn.
Oh wow, I think
Independence Inn, and it was on it was in Brooklyn. It was on the north side in Williamsburg. Wow. I want to say it was on North 9th Street.
Wow,
and it was a walk up. It was a walk up building, like 5 floors. And they converted each floor to have 2 huge dorms.
Wow.
And it was like 4 beds to a dorm. And first floor was like the administrative folks. There was like a kitchen. A bit, yeah, dude, it was and
that's crazy.
The wild thing is that it was for guys between the ages of 16 and 21. You could live there for a year. You had to be working and going to school. You had to be going to school and working. And if you weren't working, you had to be you had to be seeking employment.
Yeah,
like
actively seeking certain
seeking.
interviews throughout the week and all
showing like job applications, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So for me, I was already working. I had at that time, I want to say I had 3 jobs, and I was in school.
Yeah.
So I'm always working, hustling, like doing my thing, and but one of the main reasons why I went there was because I didn't have to pay rent, and I knew that I could save money.
Yeah.
So I was a New York City lifeguard for the Parks Department from the age of 16 to 21, because 21 is when I joined the Air Force.
Okay.
Being a lifeguard for the New York City Parks Department is like one of the best kept secrets. Like if you could swim and you could like get
It's
in
good money.
and do it, yeah. So in the summer, I was making, dude, like in a summer, I was making well over $20,000.
Dope.
Well over.
Dope.
In a matter of like 2.5 months. You figure from like July 4th to like Labor Day.
Yeah.
In some instances you could start in the middle of like June. But in any case, I'm saving all this money, right? Then when your year comes up, they reevaluate, and then you could apply for an extension. So I ended up living at Independence Inn for close to like 3 years.
Wow.
When you turn 18 and you're awarded the state, you're in a shelter. Now you qualify for housing.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting an apartment, and dude, I was like 18, 19 years old. I was like 19 years old.
Yeah.
With my own apartment through housing. But the thing about it, man, it was just like eventually when I left the shelter, I had roughly $35,000 saved.
Nice.
Right? So for 2 years, I didn't work. Because, dude, I've been busting my ass for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
So now,
time for a break.
I'm doing no work.
Yeah.
I got this money. I got, I want to say I had a part-time job at Old Navy. Bro, but the reason why I go get the job at Old Navy is because it was the Old Navy on 18th and 6th Ave.
Okay.
Is this still? I don't even know if it's still
I don't
there.
think it's still there. So much stuff has changed.
Yeah,
The
but
city.
it was like
there.
there. It was like the first store in New York City. It was like right there. Like, so I go in, I buy a shirt. There's this redhead, dude. Like I never seen anything like that, right? Like just like porcelain, like look like a porcelain doll. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And start talking to like I'm making conversation, and like she's from the UK or something like that, living out in Queens. Goes to like one of the schools. I think she was going to like Baruch or something like that. So then I go back like the next day, buy another shirt, start, So then listen to like how my mind works. So I leave and I'm like, you could come back here every day and buy a shirt. I mean, it's not like you don't have the money.
Yeah.
You could do it.
Exactly.
But if you really want to, like, if the smart move would be to get a job here. So then I come back. I come back the next day. I apply for a job. So I get hired. So now I'm working at Old Navy part time, and the whole purpose was to like
the redhead,
the redheaded chick from the UK. So I end up getting put like on a night shift because she went to a night shift. It all worked out.
Yeah.
And then I left the job. Like I was like, but for 2 years I don't work except for like this little part time thing. But then the account, I have no more money, and I go out to California for my 21st birthday. I was born in California.
Oh, okay.
So I go out to Cali. I'm hanging out with my family. I go to my aunt's house. They had like a pool party for me, and her husband at the time, because my aunt and her husband were both retired Air Force, and now they were working for the post office.
Wow.
So now I'm like putting it all together, like as like now current day, I'm like, damn, they were caking back, like
chilling.
Yeah, they had a beautiful ranch house with the pool, and they both had nice cars, and they were hanging. Hands me a stack of like Air Force literature.
Like the pamphlets.
Yep. He's like, hey, Mach. No, Macho. He's like, hey, Macho. He's like, you should really look into this, yada, yada. And then when I come back from Cali, like my bank account, dude, I had 35 grand at one point. Now I'm like way, dude, I'm probably like close to like 6,000 or something like that. Like there's been a lot that has, like, the bank account has depleted. So that happens, the pamphlets, and just long story short, I end up running into a friend of mine from night school on a train platform. She's in the Air Force, and that's how I start to kind of like connect the dots.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what else to do. Like,
getting all these signs.
So that was my move, man. That was my move. And how did we get onto that?
You asked me why I had joined, and then we kind of had the similar same thing too.
Okay. Yeah.
What year was that?
I joined in 99.
Okay.
I joined in 99. Yep. And then 9/11 happened. Like, the other crazy thing is, like, for those that are listening who may not know this, like, within the Air Force, I'm gonna just throw a number out there. There's over 100 jobs, which is, there's probably over 200 actually.
Yeah.
But they're broken down by what's called like an AFSC, Air Force Specialty Code, which is the identifier for your job. Depending on how technical your job is, will require you to stay in what's called technical training for longer than like an aircraft mechanic is going to stay in school learning that way longer than, So my job was like a 6-week turnaround.
Mine too. Yeah, mine too. I was supply.
So I was medical logistics.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So you were loggy. I was like, so think about this. So I joined the Air Force in 99. So I go from Brooklyn to San Antonio, Texas, to Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls.
Wow.
To Charleston, South Carolina in less than 6 months. So within 6 months, I go from being, living in Brooklyn, living in this apartment, to all of a sudden, now I'm in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And I'm in the South. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. Culture shock, dude. Absolute culture shock. Like one of the first things, let me tell you this. I show up to my first day at my base. My supervisor says, "What are you doing here? You guys normally join the Army."
Wow.
Yeah, bro.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
That was, and then, dude, like, so you're a young guy. You're in the Air Force.
Experiencing racism right off the bat.
Right off the back.
Yeah.
Trying to like navigate like that whole thing. You know what I mean? What was your first base?
So my first base was Luke. So like Luke Air Force Base, which is in Phoenix, Arizona. I loved it. The crazy thing is, same thing, similar situation. So I think the place you were at probably was similar because so I was in a homeless shelter before that. My grandmother couldn't raise me, so I ended up being in foster care. They put me in. I went to a place called Life Street. Life Street is in Tribeca. It's actually not too far from the federal building where the HP office is. It was literally right there, a building that's right next to that entrance to the Holland Tunnel, coming to Jersey. We stayed there. It was like just like how you describe it. They take your clothes, they give you these like Champion sweatpants, t-shirt, and they wash your stuff. And they were looking to place you into different programs. So I got placed, and then the social worker came, picked me up, and was like, "All right, we're driving." It felt like we were driving forever, but we literally drove to Dobbs Ferry, which is just above the Bronx in Westchester County. You're on this campus. It looks like it has a house. It was the place I was in was called the Gatehouse, and I guess they basically kind of evaluate you and see how prepared you are for being in a regular community because you're on this campus. Everything's on this campus, school, gym, everything. But
what year is this?
Probably was like 90, 96, 97. Because I was only there for 2 years. The same thing, like you said. So you're in the Gatehouse. And then once you can prove that you have what's called ILS, independent living skills, they move you down to the city. And when you're in the city, you have to be in school. So it was 2 houses. There was one in Flushing, Queens. There's one in Bayside. The one in Flushing was more so for like high school freshmen through high school juniors. The one in Bayside was for like high school seniors and people in college. So you either had, for the first hunt in Flushing, you had to be in school. Obviously, you had to go to school. We had like a whole van. They would take us clothing shopping every 3 months. You had to get your own way to school. So you got your Metro card and whatever else, your school Metro card. I was there for about 2 years until I got to my junior year. I moved to the house in Bayside. I had a job, but like you too, I've been working since I was 13. Right before I went into the group home, I was the security guards, the public safety, school safety in the school I went to in Harlem. They were like, why you don't have a job? You got to have money in your pocket. You can't be out here with no money. So he walked me over, and they used to always send me to the store to go get coffee for them at the end of the school day. And they would give me their change, like, oh, go get us 2 cups of coffee. I remember one of his names was Stanley, and I forget the other one's name. So he was like, we got to get you a job. So he literally walked me over with them to get their coffee. And the guy's name was Ralph. It was a corner bodega in Harlem, Spanish Harlem, 120th and 1st Avenue. I remember exactly, right by Wagner Projects. He was like, I know you need some help around here, you know what I'm saying? And he was like, yeah, sure. I think I was getting paid like $2 an hour, which was cool. I worked 4 hours. I was in there making deli sandwiches, sweeping up the curb, the sidewalk, sweeping and mopping the floor, restocking the fridge with the drinks, and I'd be able to make me a hero before I got off. But to jump forward, yeah. So I was in the group home from there, graduated high school, took a year off. I was like, all right, I don't know what I was going to do. I wasn't going to the NBA. I ended up working for Nike, 57th and 5th in Manhattan. And then I had a school reach out to me upstate New York in Watertown, New York, right near Fort Drum. And they were like, hey, we see that you're not in school. You playing ball. So I went up there, played ball for 2 years, basketball. And then at that point, I'm about 21 years old. And same thing. My thing was talking to a recruiter. Came in, did a school presentation, and my uncle, my aunt's, who's my mother's sister, she was in the Marines. Her husband was in the Marines. And I was kind of, like you said, weighing my options. Like, yo, what am I going to do? For us, it was like we aged out, and then you would go into, like I said, you would get into Section 8. They would get you an apartment, and they would kind of help you set up because they wanted to make sure you had a savings account. They wanted to make sure that you had everything you needed. So my thing was like, I grew up in the projects. I grew up very, poor, having been homeless, having been in homeless shelters, sleeping in parks at a young age. I was like, nah, I don't want that. And I saw, like you said, the same thing. I saw the security. My aunt and my uncle, they had a house out in San Francisco. That's where I learned how to drive. They were from Brooklyn. And I went through the Marines. Originally, I went through the Marines. And then my uncle was like, nothing against Marines. I got plenty of Marines friends. He was just like, with the Marines, I don't see you making it a career. It's going to wear and tear you down mentally and physically. He was like, with the Air Force, you have more of a likelihood of making it a career, which obviously I have. But he didn't stop me from it. We went and spoke to a Marine recruiter, and he didn't tell him that he was in the Marines. So kind of, how the recruiting game goes. So the recruiter definitely said some things that weren't true. And after, he was like, see, that's why I don't want him. If he was going to tell you and be honest, we could have looked at it. But we kind of weighed the options. And the Air Force is one of the hardest branches to get into as far as, the qualifications. As one of the highest ASVABs out of all the branches. And they, like you said, I mean, it's crazy that you faced racism at your first base, but I think I may have got it indirectly. I don't have a specific story, but I definitely can remember some snide comments similar to that because we commonly don't. And even if we are in the Air Force, we're predominantly in logistics or security forces. I think now it's hopefully changing, where it's getting more diverse throughout all the other AFSCs. But I saw that as a challenge. It was like the Air Force is the hardest one to get into. So now I was like, all right, I'm going to study for the ASVAB. I want to do better. So ended up, I made my recruiter's job super easy. Man, I was like, look, I want to join the Air Force. I'm an athlete. I didn't know my dad. So that part of the SF-86, I didn't get to fill out. It was just my mom. And then I was awarded a state also. So that made it a lot easier as well as far as processing. I think I had to finish up half of a semester. So I joined the Air Force in September 2006. That's when I depped in at Syracuse MEPS because I was still upstate. After I joined, I had to wait till that semester was over. So I was basically in the DEP, which is the delayed entry program. I'm waiting. You know how that goes where, hey, we got a job available. I booked the job. I booked non-destructive inspection. Because I was like, all right, that's something I could probably use on the outside. That's working on the airframe, the metal of the airframe. So I liked it, cool. And then I think once my semester ended.
Like back shop, right?
Yeah, back shop job, working, not exactly maintenance, but you're working on like the frame, the metal framing on the aircraft. So you're not on the flight line kind of grinding, but you're just making sure that the paneling is all good and secure and stable. So I remember March, actually it was the end of April, mid-April. my recruiter reaches out. He says, hey, I know you. I think my job was leaving like in June because they knew I was in school, but the semester had ended, or it was ending, or it was about to end. He said, hey, I got a job. You know, it was, now I know it was like a in-week can or something like that, or somebody canceled on their job or they got disqualified for whatever. So he's like, hey, I got this job. It leaves March 6th. That was when I left for basic.
Wow.
So I'm, you know, in my situation, I'm like, well, I didn't really have any plans in between after. I knew I was joining the Air Force and I knew that that's what it was. Yeah, that should be better.
You're a keyboard warrior.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I didn't have any plans. I was like, and my biggest thing was I could have stayed. I had a couple offers for a 4-year to finishing up school, but I was like, all right, I'm gonna keep chasing basketball. Yeah, it was cool. But at that time, like you said, I was broke, man. I was like, all right, and then when I was upstate in college, I did have a job. I worked at Best Buy. I worked at a clothing store against all odds. Not at the same time. I kind of went from one to the other. I was at Best Buy right before I joined the Air Force. And, you know, you're making minimum wage. You know, it's like, all right, it's not, for me, I didn't feel like it was a livable wage. And I didn't want to go down a path where I was like, what the Air Force had with the educational benefits, I can go to school later. The medical benefits, I was getting, you know, you're going to get medical insurance. And I get an opportunity to kind of see outside of New York. Granted, I love New York City. I love it. I joined to get out of New York City. But when I got my assignment list, I put everything in the Northeast, McGuire, Hanscom, Langley. I put everything to stay close to home. And they sent me to Arizona. Me being a naive New Yorker that I was like, Arizona, cactus and tumbleweed. I was like, all right, Charles Barkley, the Phoenix Suns. And I'm like, all right, but I get out there and I fall in love with it. At that time, my son's mom, we got married when I was in tech school because we were really good friends. We were really close. And then we got married. You know, you kind of get into the Air Force, you're like, we could stay together and do long distance. So if we get married, you know, at that time, I'm 22 years old. We get married, you can come with me. All right.
Same thing here.
You know, so you don't want to really deal with the struggles or overcoming that stuff. So we end up getting married. At this time, I'm 21, 22 years old. Should I have been married? Absolutely not. I wasn't ready to be anybody's husband.
Exactly, dude. Exactly.
But we planned my son. We get there and I'm like, 22, I don't want to wait to have a child. I want to be able to still be active and be in my son's life. And, you know, so we planned our son. We had my son. I get to, you know, be there. I'm at Luke for about 5 years. I think we made it about 2 years because, yeah, we got divorced when he was about 3 years old. And then we separated. It was rough. You know how that goes. It's rough in the beginning, but over time we grew. She was like one of my best friends, man. Like we co-parent really well. I was always there for her kids and then also my son. And then obviously you see with my situation, her being there for me. But Luke Air Force Base was my first base. And you got to come out there because I'm retiring in 2 years. And that's where I want to have my retirement ceremony. And another thing is the squadron that I joined the Air Force in is a squadron that I'm a flight chief for now. And that was my first EA assignment, which was crazy. Talk about full circle, dude.
Yeah.
Like, so the 313th Recruiting Squadron, headquartered in Syracuse, they are the headquarters and for the New York City recruiting flight offices, but also in Watertown, Syracuse, Buffalo, Plattsburgh, all of that. So I joined in the Watertown office in Watertown, New York. And then my first EA recruiting job was in D-Flight in New York City, covering Elmhurst, Queens, Grand Concourse in the Bronx, Westchester Square, Harlem, 125th Street, and that Times Square recruiting office. So I was in the Elmhurst office. I stayed in New York. After that, I EA recruited in 2015 to 2018 until literally February of this year. I was a HP recruiter. I did nurse corps, dental corps, medical corps. Those. And then now I'm the flight chief for the flight that I was an EA recruiter for.
So you took Chewy's job? Because Chewy was the flight chief.
Well, he was the MLS. He was at MEPS, and then our flight chief got fired. And then I'm glad because Chewy was just like we're in the business of people, man. I think you get certain people, they don't have the personality because for applicants that we deal with, and then also recruiters, you got to care about your people. You got to take care about your people. And Chewy, that's who he was. You know, he really was just a personable, down to earth dude. And I mean, there's a huge gap in that with my military career because I was at Luke for 5 years, deployed to Iraq, Baghdad, Camp Sadler, did a 365 to Afghanistan, Kabul, Camp Eggers out there.
Doing logistics, right?
I was doing local acquisition. So for my first deployment to Iraq, I was TCN duty. That's when deployments were like 4 months. By the time I got unpacked, I felt like we were packing to go back. It was quick. I was actually in Iraq when George Bush got the shoe thrown at him. We were there for that. Yeah, we was there for that. That was crazy.
What year was that?
That was 2008.
Really?
That was 2008, dude.
Dude, you know I was in Iraq in 03?
Oh, wow. I graduated high school in 03.
03, dude.
That's crazy.
03. So
that was like bare bit. Like you built the base. Like you were there like at the very beginning.
Bruh, listen, dude. Like I think back on those days and I'm just like, how, man?
Yeah.
How, dude?
Yep.
You know, so I had, you know, I was dealing with like there was some racism type stuff going on, but thankfully, there's always more good than bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there were people in the vicinity that were just like, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
You don't treat people like that kind of thing. But ultimately, the guy who was in charge of like the deployment manager, cool dude, civilian dude, he would go to this reggae bar that I would go to downtown Charleston.
Okay.
So I would see him. You know what I mean? Like, you know, he's an older guy though. He's older. He's chilling.
Yeah.
But you know, I would run into him. So after 9/11, maybe like 6 months later, I'm walking in the hallway and he's like, "Hey, come here." He's like, "You want to deploy?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, I got something."
Plugged you. That's what's
plugged me, right? So, you know, New York. You know, I'm from New York, right? Like, I volunteered. I wanted to go, so I go to Kirkuk.
Oh, okay.
I go to Kirkuk, bro. Like when we land, like we're being shot at.
Combat landing.
Like we're being shot at.
Wow.
Like
that's crazy.
I remember this girl that gets off the plane with me. She's like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Bullets, gunfire." Like it's not popcorn.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So they rush us all. They rush us onto the bus. We get down like low, and then they freaking put the luggage on top of us. Oh. You know what I mean? Like they just pile up the luggage. So you got all these sea bags on top of you, and they scram off the runway, off the flight line, I should say.
Yeah.
And but dude, no, we were tent city. We were tent city.
Crazy. Bunkers and all that.
No, we had no bunkers.
Oh,
that is how brand new what was going on.
Yeah.
So check this out, right? So I was doing TCN. I was working at night. I chose to work at night.
Why?
So good question. Why, right? So what I thought, so I'm like, okay, this is my mind, dude. This is my mind, right? So group dynamics, right? Group dynamics. So think about it. 6 bases sent 10 TCNs to right? So there's 60 people. So I quickly realized that there's only like 7 people on night shift. So where are the rest? They're on day shift.
Yeah.
That's a lot of personality, bro. That's a lot of drama. That's a lot of different things.
Absolutely.
So I'm like, let me get on the night shift, dude. Like, I think my odds of having a better experience, you know, and in terms of like who I'm going to be dealing with on a regular day basis or whatever. So that's how I, you know.
Yeah.
And then the staff sergeant who was running the night shift, Jonathan Lee, staff sergeant. This is my boy, like Jonathan Jay. He's retired now. But no nonsense, dude, bro. Like, you know, black dude from Texas. So I gravitate to him like immediately, and I'm like, "Yo, Jay, like," I didn't say it. We weren't on a first name basis, but it was like, "Sorry, Lee, like, I would like to come on night shift, whatever." Long story short, I get put on night shift. So now I have to clearly sleep during the day, right? So what was happening was, bro, we were getting like bombarded with mortars like around like noon.
Sheesh.
Right? I'm talking about like,
and you trying to sleep
every day, right? So what they come to find out was that the insurgents that we were hiring to work on the base, by the way,
giving out intel.
What these guys were doing is they were putting mortars into dry ice, setting them, and by the middle of the day, the dry ice would melt, and then the mortar would lob itself.
Wow.
So, bro, like, it's not aimed at anything.
It's just going off.
There isn't it. like I was telling someone else on the podcast, like it could land nowhere or it could land in your lap. Like you just don't know where you're gonna get hit. Yeah. And it's not the thing with mortars, man. It's not about so much. It's not exactly where it hits. It's the kill zone after the fact, right? Like, you know how everything kind of like shoots up in a V formation, the shock wave. Dude, you could be just a few feet away and your lungs could collapse, right? Like all that stuff. So what I would do is I would sleep with my flak vest on, my helmet on. I got my hands on another flak vest, inverted it, and slid my legs through. So that way, like my groin and everything is like, and that's how I would sleep. I would sleep on my stomach. Sheesh. You know what I mean? Because I was just like, you know, the vital organs are here.
Exactly.
I got a better chance if I'm laying on my stomach. Dude, this is all crazy.
These are deployment thoughts, though.
Yeah.
These are things that we think about when we're out there, the best way we can be protected.
And then you got to imagine, bro, like this is like, you know, it's a city is what it is. And there's all kind of fuckery going on.
Yeah.
All kind of wild shit going on, bro. So the base, we get there, dude. Okay. The Iraqi general who had this base, right? They took this man's house and made it into a cantina. They took the playground, his kid's playground, and painted it red, white, and blue, painted a big old American, bro, bro. I'm 23. Wild. I'm 23 years old, right?
Wow.
So we go to the cantina. You could get a Cuban cigar. You could get cohibas. You could get all kind of stuff at the cantina. The blood was still on the walls from when they cleared the house.
Wow. Wild.
Where this guy had a study, because his books and stuff are like there's Qurans, bro. This is wild. Yeah. They set up ping pong tables. There was a rooftop like sun deck.
Yeah.
So we go up there, and in the distance you just see tracer fire. Right. So my sponsor, the guy who's like sponsoring me, he's like, "Oh, look, they're shooting at us." I'm like, "Huh?" He's like, "Yeah, look,
lighting up the sky.
Yeah, they're shooting at us." I'm like, "Then we should get off of here. Like we should get off." You know, and I remember drinking a Corona, looking out into the skyline, and the refinery, the oil refineries surround the base, and it glows like an orange glow over the night sky.
Yeah.
It's like movie shit, dude. It's like Mad Max.
For real.
You know what I mean? So check this out. So at the time, you were allowed to drink. Right? Remember, it's so brand new. Exactly. There's no rations. There's no one checking if you had 2 beers or 3 beers.
Yeah.
So then they passed General Order 1.
Yeah.
And for those listening who are not familiar, it's just General Order 1 is like no porn, no alcohol, no none of that, right? So they passed General Order 1 after like 2 weeks of me being there. The general, no, I'll take that back. The colonel, Fulbright colonel, the wing commander, gives a speech at the cantina. He's basically like, listen, at effective midnight, General Order 1, he's like, whatever beer you don't drink is going to be blown up by EOD. Bro. So it was basically like, drink all the beer. Yeah. Drink all the beer. And whatever you don't drink, we're going to blow it up.
So bro, there was, go to waste.
There was nothing to blow up. But the creativity of people when they're deployed. You had dudes making like the guys from like the medical maintenance guys.
Yeah.
These guys took all these like hoses and everything. They made like these like beer
funnels,
these beer bongs.
Yeah.
The length of the building. So they had you from the roof down, dude. Wow,
this is
bro.
Crazy.
Wow, bro.
That is crazy.
Wow.
And that was your first deployment.
That was my first deployment. Get this though. Get this. The Fulbright colonel, last name's Callahan. Never forget it, right? Yeah. I swear to you, bro, I'm not making this up. This dude spoke like John Wayne is how he sounded. Looked like John Wayne.
Yes.
Yo, L, he walked around.
The holsters, the double holsters.
The double, but on his hips.
It's like
not up top, on his hips.
Like in the Wild West.
Like in the Wild West.
Yo, it's crazy.
Gets better. Fast forward a few years, like that was 03. Let's say like 2010. So like 7 years later. 7 years later, now I'm a recruiter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an EA recruiter in East Brunswick.
Yeah.
I'm working with a young man, getting him into the Air Force. Last name's Callahan. We get to talking. That full-bird colonel is his uncle or grandfather. I want to say it was like his uncle. I want to say it was like his mother's brother.
Wow.
So what I did was I went and got my album, because I don't have a phone. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You
got pictures printed out.
Yeah, I have an album from that deployment.
Wow.
And I'm like, look, that's your uncle, bro. Small world, dude. Small world, bro. It's crazy. Insane. It's crazy, dude.
It is. That's a hell of a. Like you said, you got the stories, bro.
Bro,
you got the stories.
That's why I love this whole thing with the podcast and the platform, because it's cool for me because I get to like relive it and and say these stories over. But before I forget, dude, like you said some stuff earlier on, and I don't want to just like gloss over it, but like you had mentioned like your kidney being removed.
Oh yeah.
Like, bro, before we leave here, like I just want to like, what was that, man?
That happened. That happened in March of 2021. So that's what I say with this treatment with RMC. In most cases, people were getting their kidney removed too early. So for me, I did like about a year of chemotherapy before my kidney was taken out. And I'm glad Dr. McGregor had that foresight to see that. So March 2021, this is still COVID. This is now we're quarantined. So literally the crazy thing is my kidney is removed and I'm out of the hospital in like 48 hours. Because I think it was something similar to like how you said when your daughter was in the hospital, they have to be able to eat on their own and they have to, latch on. For me, it was you had to walk a lap and you had to use the restroom on your own. You had to show them that you could do that. And then because of COVID, it was like, all right, we got to get you home. This is how you treat it. Make sure you treat the wound. So I have what's called a radical nephrectomy. They took out my right kidney. Obviously, we already spoke about the cancer was everywhere. It was speckles. I'm not going to say it was like big, but it was speckles of tumors on my lungs, on my liver, on my kidney, and on my stomach. And I think that was, and then like I said, in the lymph nodes. Literally went there. I actually bumped into that doctor 2 weeks ago, the surgeon, Dr. Stephen Chang. He was my surgeon who took out my nephrectomy. I have my mask on because in the cancer center we still have to wear masks, which is cool. I don't mind it. But we were in the elevator together, and I was just like, "Hey, Dr. Stephen Chang," and he remembered me. He was just like, "Yeah, he's like, I hear you're doing really well." But yeah, so I have one kidney now. I have one kidney. Do
you feel different?
Nah. I don't even, it's crazy because even looking at the video and the pictures of my PET scan, it's like they show me like, oh yeah, see on this side is your kidney and this side is where your other kidney was. And you just see like a gray area of where it would have been. My kidney function is good. Being African-American, I think our kidney functions are already slightly elevated just because our muscle mass and our body types. So my kidney function, I think normal is like between 1.20 to 1.35. Mine is always like 1.43, 1.50. And I was worried, and they were like, no, because my ethnicity and my body type, they're like, that's normal. And I have the other kidney is working just as good as two. Some people are born with one kidney. So I'm happy for that. Like I said, it's working out. And then since then, I've always had a very chemo-sensitive or treatment-sensitive cancer. I've had a really good response to all my treatments. Now, the treatment itself sucks. That shit sucks. Anybody who knows, who's gone through chemotherapy, radiation. So yeah, I've had the surgery. I've had like over 100 cycles of chemo, and I've went through like 30 rounds of radiation. Yeah, it's been a lot. Anybody who knows, who's been through it, you go through a lot. It's hard. Radiation, you don't really feel anything when you're doing it. It's kind of like you're going into a CAT scan or a CT scan. It's the after effects. So right now I'm dealing with like the scar tissue buildup because it shreds up everything. And the same thing with chemotherapy. So for those who don't know about chemotherapy, it doesn't get to decide what cells it destroys or what cells it kills. It kills everything.
Everything.
That's why it depletes like your white blood cell count, your red blood cells, because that's how it's treating it. It's getting rid of all, because it can't decipher good and bad cells. Same thing with radiation. Radiation's a bit more targeted. They kind of know the area. The doctors are really, really in depth, and they know, all right, these are where the cancer cells are. It's not gonna, interfere with this organ or that organ. We're gonna radiate that. And it wasn't long. Radiation was, I think each session was like 5 minutes. So it kind of goes in. You're laying there, and then it has this machine that goes around, and you don't feel anything, you don't see anything. Afterwards, I would just be really, really tired. It'll make you, really, really fatigued, a bit nauseous. And that's the same thing with chemo. Chemo just makes me feel really, really tired, really, really nauseous. Either I have a huge appetite, but majority of the times it was like a lack of an appetite. Like I wouldn't be hungry at all. A cool thing, but I guess for me going through treatment, I haven't, most people, you think they go through chemo, you throw up. I haven't thrown up. I haven't vomited.
Man, God bless you.
Yeah,
that's wow, man.
It's tough, man. It's tough.
Dude, man. Yeah. Listen, man. Bro, thank you, man. Like,
thank you for the platform, bro.
Man, this has been great, dude. Like, for real, man.
I appreciate it. You giving me the platform to kind of, hopefully it comes out, because I know we was all over the place. I was all over the place. But no, thank you for the platform, for allowing me to come here and just, like I said, just to chop it up, what we do on the phone, what we did when we spoke last week.
Right.
Like, I can't thank you enough for sharing this amazing space, Spark.N.Stride. Like, man, this is dope.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
I'm glad to have had a part in it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I feel the feeling's mutual, bro. I'm just glad, like, again, this was just all something I thought of, and I just want this to be an inspiration to anyone who has an idea, who wants to execute on their idea. Just continue to follow through, be persistent. Let me say, like, in the way I wanted to go about the podcast and the platform is, my goal was to put out a podcast once a week. Yeah. But I'm just going to share like a little bit of background. Like, it takes a lot of work to edit these videos, and there's just so much that goes into it, the social media and that kind of thing. So I went to what I feel is like more like seasons, where like it's season 1 or 2, a few episodes here and there, because to be quite honest, there was no way I was going to be able to sustain 52 weeks. I don't have a staff. I am Spark.N.Stride. Like,
now that's a fact.
My wife
for those
is
that hear this whole studio, like those that don't see, like, you are everything: engineer, editor, host, everything, bro. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's so amazing to see it come out, because you see so many other podcasts or so many other productions that are put together. It's a team of people. You are the team.
Yeah. So, but my goal is to, like, there's folks in my family that want to be a part, and they want to help out, and so any opportunity I could give anyone to kind of like bring them along and show them, because this was all YouTube University, man. Like, I taught myself, watching videos and trial and error, right? Like, I cringe at my like earlier stuff, but it's all part of it, right? It's all part of the growing pains, you know? But man, dude, again, it was great to see you. Thank you for just being here and being so like open, candid, like, and I know that when I listen back, I'm going to say to myself, damn, I should have asked him this or that. But I know that you're going to be back.
Exactly. That's what I was waiting for. I was waiting for the open to be like, all right, there's going to be a part 2.
Yeah, absolutely, my brother. Absolutely. Anything you want to leave off with?
Nah, thank you. Anybody that's going through a difficult time, just don't quit. Don't give up. Better days are on the horizon. It'll be there, but be that support system that you need, but also don't shy away from allowing that support system to be there for you. Don't allow your pride to do that. But bro, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for this platform. I can't thank you enough, man. Thank you.
It's all love, brother. Thank you.
Bro.
You got it. Stay sparking. That's it, brother, man. We did it, bro.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Heavy duty. It's Mach.